Okay, so this video is for those of you who teach one-on-one and small group remediation instruction for the majority of the time. Also, whole class teachers who want to do more remediation instruction and want more tips and ideas to use with your more struggling small groups. This is where you want to go for some of those ideas. So what you'll see at the top of your chapter is, this chapter is for you if, and you can see the different points of, what's going on in your world and your teaching that you would use this chapter for. If you haven't already, I would ask that you print out chapter 1 and chapter 6 only of the ebook. The rest of it, if you were to print out the entire thing, you're going to be flip-flopping back and forth a lot. This way, you'll just have the directions from chapter 1, your information and all of your templates in chapter 6, and then you'll use the ebook version as you're planning to go back and forth with your word lists, and we'll use this little box up here to put in page numbers. So I'll show you how you do all that. So if you haven't already, pause this video, print out just chapter 1 and just chapter 6, go ahead and just, those page numbers, and that way you can come back and have those in front of you as we plan. So once you have everything printed out, you'll see that you've got some notes on your first page and just talking to you about using Ebbly whenever students read, write, and spell. It's really, really fun in one-on-one and small group. So we have a couple of notes here. So first of all, with choosing text, we ask that you choose text that's not patterned, authentic text that isn't, cueing students to look at a picture, that kind of thing, as you remember from the online training. You want to choose text that students have not already read. So if you don't know what to have your students read, we actually have a recommended reading list that we'll look at in a second. We also highly recommend, especially with beginning readers, K1, and then the Ebbly Island and Ebbly Space apps for beginning reading instruction, and then Sight Words Made Easy for anybody second grade and up who struggles with mixing up those words that look similar. So here are a little plan for you to use the Ebbly apps for the following. It tells you, kind of the little plan of who to use the apps for at what ages and all that. We really love for you to watch the videos, so that's why this note is in here. To go on the Ebbly members area, you have a lifetime subscription, and watch those videos before you teach. That's what's going to help you become an expert Ebbly teacher and instructor. So here's that recommended reading list. As you can see, it goes by grade level, and these are books that, kind of the fun part of remediation is you typically have some more wiggle room in what the students can read. You don't have typically a set curriculum. So these are books that students and kids told us that they love. So the K1, you've got all these guys, and the Decodable Bob books and Nora Gatos for the very beginning readers and all that. And then second through third grade, we love series because then the students, once they get done with one, they can keep going with more and more books. So we love that. And then short stories for them, and then fourth through fifth grade options, series, and short stories, and then some more for sixth grade and up. Also on our website, we have lots of ideas for books and stories and things to read with students. We have poems on here, lots of really, really great stuff. So if you don't know where to start as far as figuring out a text, be sure and check out that list. What you'll see when you go to plan is that you've got a few notes here telling you about your planning template. You're going to have directions for planning every bit and a sample. But what I want to do with you today is actually plan your first week of lessons so that you're ready to go and you kind of have me here to hold your hand through the process and show you where to find everything throughout your ebook. So you also have an authentic lesson planning template, if you remember from your training, that you fill out by pulling those 10 words out of whatever text students are going to read. So there's a template here and it tells you what page to find that on. And if I didn't mention this already, when you are navigating in the ebook, because there are 5 pages in the table of contents, whatever page it tells you to go look at, so if we've got 144, I'm just going to add 5 to it and go to 149. And that's going to take me to that planning template. And then I can just go back to the one that I was just on. So that you can just type that number in at the top, whatever the page number you want, plus 5, and that's going to take you where you need to go. And pay attention to where you were so that you can get back to that right page too. And that way you can just, again, print chapter 1 and 6. And then when you're going for the other sections and finding the bits and pieces that you need out of this entire book, you can just type in the number and fly there and print out just that page. So it's really helpful. So here is what your weekly planning template looks like. And what you have You have a box over here for your student or your students. So if you're seeing individual students, you just write one name in here. If you're seeing a bunch of groups, you're going to write the names of all of the students in your group in one box. And then we've got these optional independent student activities. So talking about creating groups, if you haven't already created your groups, we recommend grouping students by ability level. We highly recommend a maximum of 4 students per group. So if you have bigger groups, if small groups, in your school tend to be a little bit bigger, if you've got a lot of kids that you're working with in the room at one time and want to work with groups, put 3 or 4 in a group, and then the rest of them will be doing independent work while you're working with those students, and then you'll swap. So deciding which days of the week that you're going to work with each student, be sure and dedicate more time to your lower, more struggling students. Your higher flyers, you can give 2 days a week instead of 3, or whatever it is. Or if you see them all every single day, you can just check that off too. So we'll just look at the sample down here. So here I have my groups. I have 8 different groups of students, and I'm seeing 4 groups on Monday, Wednesday. I'm seeing 4 groups on Tuesday, Thursday. And then a lot of times what remediation instructors will do too is leave that Friday open for makeups. So that's a good idea too. And this way, if you do 4 groups, 2 days a week and 4 groups the other 2 days, then you can have longer chunks of time dedicated. So that's kind of nice. So once you fill that in, you're going to plan your one-on-one and small group lessons. What you guys are very fortunate to have is actual set out lesson plans for you. So phase 1 is going to be teaching the foundational activities. If you remember back to your training, you're going to have all those sorts and all of the information telling students the different places that this spells A and all of that you're going to go through. And so that's what this is talking about here with phase 1. If it's telling you about these blue highlighted activities, you can find the words in section 5. So it's telling you that page number. Then I'm going to go to page 452, which if I add 5, I'm going to go there. Okay, section 5 is going to tell me where to go for each of my sorts. So if I go here to one of them, you'll see that I have all of my words for 2nd through 3rd grade. I have my sort. I have these word lists to choose from. Sort 2 of the words. Sort 1 of the words from these columns. And then my tendencies at the bottom. And I have different word lists for each grade level. And then I also have words for multisyllable. So I'll choose 1 out of my 6 lists. So I've got 2 words for multisyllable spelling, starting with list 1, which is the easiest, going to list 6, which is the most complex. So choose 1 of those. And of course, if you choose a list and it's too difficult, back up and go to an easier one. If you choose one and the kids have no issues and don't misspell anything, maybe go 1 or 2 lists harder. So, allow yourself some wiggle room with that. It's not a black and white situation. There's a lot of gray area, especially when you're teaching remediation. You also have your split word reading list. So you start with list 1, that's way simpler, and then goes all the way up to list 6, more complex. And again, these are all E words, words that have different spellings for E. So you have a lot of different options to work with in here. So that's phase 1, is the foundational instruction. Now the second phase is going to be infusion. So you're going to just teach the EBLI activities with pulling out the words that students are already going to have to read in their content, in their books, in their articles, in whatever they're reading with you. So when you go to plan your lessons, here are your phase 1 lessons. So you'll just, fill your lesson numbers into your box as you're planning. And when you're looking for, which activities you're going to teach, here they are. If you already have your steps documents printed out from your online training, you can use those. And if not, you can go to section 2, which is page 146. And you've got every single steps document is laid out for you, one-on-one, small group, and whole class, so you can go there. So that's kind of a nice tool to have. So now here's all your lessons. You've got 30 foundational lessons, and then you have your phase 2 EBLI lessons, which is where you're actually going to pull either a single day infusion activity or a 2-day activity and put those in. And these are the ones that you're using with words from either section 5, where they're already done for you that you hadn't done already, or you're doing an authentic lesson again where you're pulling out your own words like down here. And again, every time that you have to use some sort of worksheet or you need some sort of resource, it's going to tell you exactly what page to go to find it. So that's a helpful thing about this book. So if you'll see here, now I've got all my students and all my groups ready. Now I'm going to say which lesson I'm on day 1, which lesson I'm on day 2, etc. Any other notes that you need, over here I have notes about who missed a day when they were out sick and who, these guys are way further along because they went through these same lessons during the online training. So maybe those guys, I start them later. So all of this that you have, and make notes about where you left off if you didn't finish a whole activity, so that the next time, you can kind of keep a booklet of these planning templates, and next time you can just pick up where you left off. So there's a lot of good space there for you to make your notes. And here is an example of the weekly planning template for phase 2. So you'll see I have my Magic Treehouse book, and I'm doing my authentic lesson where I'm pulling out my words and pre-teaching in them and then reading. And maybe I've got, 2 groups reading Magic Treehouse, one with Bridge to Terabithia, that's my higher group. I have some reading Animorphs, a couple reading the Scholastic News. These other groups are reading also Magic Treehouse. So even though I've got all these different groups, maybe I'm only planning a couple of authentic lessons, so that's helpful. There are a couple of activities that were not taught explicitly in the online training, and for those, they're in your lessons, so you've got your scripts in here. There's also videos on the members area that you can look at for these activities. Now, if you do have the situation where you've got more than 4 students at a time and you need to have the rest of your students do something independent while you're working with them, you can use those optional independent student activities. You can have them doing, independent work of your choosing, or you may use the activities that we set out for you here in section 3. So if you go to section 3, let's see, choose. Okay, so section 3, I've got my different activities that I can choose from, and I'll show you what that looks like when we go back in here to your sample lesson plan. Okay, now down here at the bottom, I have my independent optional student activities. Now, maybe I just have 1 if I've only got a couple of kids, but you can plan up to 3 or 4 or however many you need. If you're just seeing 1 student or 1 small group at a time, then you can completely disregard those independent student activities. And then here you have your authentic lesson planning template. Here's a sample from a chapter of Bridge to Terabithia. Now you got your 2 words up here with the syllable and sound lines that you'll teach with spelling. And then you have your 8 words with split word reading. And this is your teacher template. So then you've also got a student lesson where you don't have any of the definitions or anything like that. And then when you're going to plan your own, here's your planning template that you can use with your own text. So if you have questions with this going forward, we welcome your questions. Please email us at info@ebly.com. We're happy to help you. Good luck as you get going. Remember, there is lots of gray area with this. So, again, if you feel like you've pushed them too far and you need to back up to an easier text, please do that. If they're just flying through and having no issues, bump them up into something a little tougher. Don't be afraid to play around with it. And again, ask us if you have any questions, and have a great time Eblying. We look forward to hearing from you. So good luck.